Welcome to episode 233, From a Broke Student to a Seven-Figure Sales Leader with Steven Cohen. Welcome to the Be That 1% podcast. I'm your host, James Silvis, mindset specialist and performance coach. And here on the show, I'm going to challenge you to think deeper, commit to greatness, and develop a stronger mindset. You'll hear stories from those who are living life on their terms, and you'll receive strategies that will help you level up. So the question is, are you ready to be your own 1%? Let's get started. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Be That 1% podcast. I'm very excited for today's interview. This is a special leader that I've had the privilege and the honor of knowing for past 4.5 years, and watching this man lead from the heart and create epic teams and create massive impact wherever he goes. Steven Cohen is joining me today on the podcast. For those of you who don't know who Steven is, he is the co-founder of Sundar Energy, the fastest growing solar sales team in the country. He's a 7-figure sales leader, and he's been in the direct selling industry for over a decade now. And I reached out to him because not only are there things that I can learn from Steven, but anytime Steven and I have a conversation, I always leave a better person. And so I know that by you being here and listening to this episode, my hope is that you feel that same way too. And then also, being that we've collaborated for a while now, Steven, in many different ways, I just love who you are as a person. So thank you for being you, and welcome to the show, brother.
Bro, I'm honored to be here, man. Checks in the mail. That was an amazing intro, and looking forward to going deep.
Cool. So let's start with some rapid fire questions, and then we'll get into the meat of the episode. First question is, where were you born and raised?
So I was born in Brooklyn, New York, technically. I don't have an East Coast accent, but born in New York, moved to Vegas when I was 2. So basically raised in the 702 on the West Coast. Lived here my whole life until I made a 2-year escape, you can call it, over California and Colorado, and found my way back here to Las Vegas.
Amazing. What is a philosophy that you live by?
Be kind. I feel like the golden rule, treat others how you'd like to be treated. As cliche as that sounds, I think it's cliche for a reason. I believe if you have good intentions and you're truly a good person, you try to help other people to the best of your ability, that karma, that dharma, whatever you want to call it, will come back around, and you'll be in a better state. You'll get good things happening to you, and you'll just feel good overall.
Love it. What is your definition of failure?
Quitting. I'm a firm believer. I've reconditioned my mind through my personal development journey to look as failing as something that's actually positive and not necessarily something you want to run away from. Fail faster, fail forward, because that's where the meat of your lessons will be learned. But I believe true failure is giving up on something that you believe in.
Love that. What does the world need more of right now?
I think the world needs more of dreamers, more people out there that actually want to go against society and go against the status quo and go out there and create something they believe in. I feel like most people, they conform, unfortunately. They're one of my favorite quotes, actually on my Instagram page. It says that the opposite of courage isn't cowardice, but it is conformity. And I truly believe that. I feel like, even dead fish can go with the flow. And if more people would actually, chase their dreams, listen to their intuition, and go out there against what the majority of society tells you, the world would be a better place. People would be, vibrating on a higher frequency, and life would be a little better for everyone.
Hell yeah. Love that. What is a game-changing book that you've read in the past or recently?
One of my favorite books is a book called Ask and It's Given by Jerry and Esther Hicks. And it really focuses more on the thinking, the spiritual side of success. You can read all the tactical and all the strategies, which are important. But I believe that until you have the right philosophy, until you have the right awareness over your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and really can frame them in a certain way that's going to support you, all the strategies, all the techniques, all the circumstances, you're not going to be able to really capitalize on them until your inner world, is right.
That's great. What is a solid piece of advice that you've received recently or in the past that has served you well?
A solid piece of advice I would say is just follow your intuition, follow your gut. In my career, I used to listen to the noise of other people. I used to care more about what people thought of me than what I thought of me. And therefore my results and my life wasn't, to my desire. When I really realized that everything that you need to, and that we are born and given to us by whatever you believe in, source, universe, God, that higher being with a almost like a compass internally, that as long as you can follow that compass and have awareness, which I know you talk about a lot, everything that you need to. You just have to trust your gut, trust your intuition, even if logically it doesn't make sense, because you have to realize that, as Steve Jobs says, right, it's hard to connect the dots looking forward, but if you can trust your intuition, you can realize how every decision actually led you, to that person or to that destination you're trying to, become or acquire.
Yeah. And last question here is, what did you have to give up? I know this is a loaded question and it may take us into the body of the episode.
Let's do it.
What did you have to give up or sacrifice in order to get to where you are today?
You have to be willing to sacrifice your old life for your new life. And I believe that, there was a crossroads in my life about a decade ago where I was going to take the path of most traveled and go with what society believed, I should be doing, and what my parents and what my friends and my fraternity brothers, or there is a scarier path, an unknown path, the road less traveled, as some would say. And at that crossroads, I had to give up what I believed my self-image used to be. I had to give up my old identity. I had to give up, fraternity, partying, low self-esteem, Steven, who, grew up with, low circumstances and didn't have too many advantages. I had to let go of that story in order for me to step into my new life. And until I let go of that and I made decision in order to stop doing the things I used to do, maybe stop associating with some of the people I used to, stop going to certain places, change my values, change my beliefs. Until I was willing to let that go, I could never create the new life that I was trying to accomplish.
That's great. And that leads into one of my first questions for you, which is, what has been your biggest fear that you've confronted and maybe still wrestle with when you did make that choice to leave that old Steven behind and embrace this new version that you strive to be?
It's a really good question. I would say probably the biggest challenge, and I still face it today, is I think the worthiness complex. There's, someone said it, but new levels, new devils, right? In order for you to take on a new lifestyle, a new level of success, a new depth in a relationship, whatever part of your life that you're trying to enhance, there's going to be challenges and there's going to be certain things that come up from the marketplace, from the universe, in order to test you about how committed or how serious you are in order to accomplish that goal that you're trying to accomplish. And for me, I think the biggest thing was, one, maybe getting there, getting to that level of success, becoming that person that I dreamed of, having the social skills, and not being able to handle it, or not wanting the responsibility that came with it, or having it and then potentially being at risk to lose it. I forgot who said this, but being poor, being broke isn't the worst thing that can happen in life. It's tasting that success and losing it. For a lot of people is the worst thing that could potentially happen. So I feel like a lot of people, including myself, we almost stop before we achieve that milestone, or we stop right before that gold is mined, because of our fear of, once we accomplish that, either not being able to handle it, being overwhelmed, or potentially losing it. Therefore, we don't take the action that we need to get there. And I feel like I still feel that. And to an extent, I'm motivated by fear to an extent, because I'm trying to create as much distance from who I used to be and where I used to be as possible, which keeps that fire under my butt and keeps me motivated. But yeah, I would say fear is something that is important to be aware of, and if not addressed unconsciously, can prevent you from accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, that's great. I would agree with that in a lot of ways. The um, you probably have heard me talk about this, and I've created a fear series on just fears that are common that I've noticed in high performers, and I would consider you a high performer, high like caliber person, high caliber leader. And when you study these types of individuals, you understand that they're human like everybody else, and that they feel the fear, but they actually use it as fuel as opposed to a paralyzer. And the fear that you kind of mentioned is, it for me lumps into fear of success, which is the one that I have the most intimate relationship with. And it doesn't mean that you fear the things that you want. It means you fear the change that comes with the things that you want. And the change can be relationships. It can be the pressure. It can be the spotlight. It can be the risk of having it and then having it slip through your fingers, right? And thank you for sharing that, because I know a lot of leaders out there probably resonate with the same thing, and it's very common. And once you identify it, then, as you're saying, using it as a driver to produce, to show up, to lead, to do the work that you may not want to do, but you have to do in order to keep growing and innovating and impacting people's lives.
Yeah. And like, to your point, I think you just have to, awareness is key, right? Because you can't shift something. You can't use something to your advantage unless you're aware of it, or else it's going to run ransom unconsciously and you're going to continue to get the same results. But I think a lot of it comes back to your original point, is like, you have to be willing to let go of who you believe you are, who you believe you used to be, in order to be able to reframe that fear, reframe those challenges in order to use them to your benefit. Because if not, all of those limiting beliefs, all of those programming that we grew up with that necessarily aren't conducive to who we are today or what we're trying to accomplish, is going to continue to override our life. I deal with a lot of people, similar to you. I'm not in the coaching space by design, but I believe my
Right.
job inherits a lot of, dealing with people, emotions, different types of people, different types of walks of life. And for me, my biggest goal is to try and help people grow and develop, because I believe that your results in the marketplace, your results in solar or direct sales, is a reflection of your inner world. It's a reflection of the inner work that you're doing, because we bring ourselves wherever we go. So you can't go out there and go crush 10 installs in a month, or go crush $250,000, $500,000, whatever your goal is, if you don't believe deep down that you're worth that level of income. Because if not, you're going to continue to go out there and work really hard, but unconsciously you're going to stop yourself from achieving what you want and start self-sabotaging yourself because of those beliefs that ultimately run our life. As you know, right, our unconscious mind is what creates our world, right? What was the quote? It's our personality creates our personal reality. I love that, because I believe in that. So in order to get your income or your external results to the level that you want, you first need to get yourself, your personal development, your personality, your attitude, your values, your discipline, all these non-physical things to that point first in order to sustain that.
Yes, 100%. What led you to making that decision to let go of the past and embrace the future? Because most people, I would say, need to hit some sort of rock bottom for them to adjust, for them to say, I've had enough, this is it. You don't strike me as a person who has gotten to that point. I think that you may have made that decision sooner. And if not, that's totally fine. That's my initial read. But what led to you saying, like, okay, I'm done with the partying, I'm done with hanging out with low vibe, I'm done with this, like, I'm going for that?
Yeah. There's a good quote. It says, until the pain of change outweighs the pain of staying the same, then nothing will ever change. To your point, right? Either people take massive action when they're either extremely motivated and inspired, or if they're to the point where they're rock bottom, and they have to change because they're in that, fight or flight mentality. For me, I think it was about a decade ago when I really, probably like 7 years ago, when I really made the conscious decision that I was going to really be serious about this and take it to the next level. So, my story. So I started entrepreneurship about a decade ago. 3 years in, I did network marketing. around 22 years old. I made no money for 3 years, but I learned a ton about myself. I developed communication skills, public speaking skills. I started learning about universal laws, stuff like law of attraction, law of vibration. And even though I was learning all this information, my outer world wasn't a reflection of my inner world. And I got really frustrated because I was doing all the things I was supposed to, reading all the books, listening to people like you, James, on YouTube, telling me what I need to do. But unfortunately, like I felt like I was stuck and my income was still at a level where I barely could support myself, let alone the people I cared about. And I remember there was a breaking point where I think I was like with my mom, and we were going to like a payday loan place because, she was late on her bills. And I remember going with her, and I just remember on that car ride home, like making a conscious decision, just getting so fed up with my current lifestyle and like these current circumstances, like, no, I need to make this happen. I can't wait 5, 10, 15 years because my parents are getting older. They can't afford that. And I almost leveraged that pain unconsciously at the time. Now looking back,
Sure.
I can consciously realize that I leveraged that pain and that discomfort and that fear in order to really shift something in my life. And then from that point forward, maybe it was a month, a year, I don't remember exactly, but that's when I got into solar shortly after that. And then people, circumstances, and places started coming together in order for me to start my trajectory on my, journey of success. And, my monetary income started being a reflection finally of what I believed I was worth. And I think from that point on, I've just never been content. The biggest challenge that I face in the direct sales industry is people come in here, the most money they made in a year is $60,000. Their first year, they make $90,000 or $80,000, doing a bare minimum amount of effort. But because they've exceeded their financial blueprint, they're comfortable and they take the foot off the gas. And again, they lose that hunger because they're now making more than what they believe that they were worth in the first place. I've never dealt with that for some reason. I've been able to continue to stay hungry and not allow myself to get complacent, even though my income's been able to grow. And I'm not exactly sure what that is too. I think it's because my vision is so big that it pulls me past a lot of these milestones that a lot of people get stuck at. But I would say, it's a discomfort was what got me going and made that shift. But I think inspiration and vision is what's kept me from not plateauing, moving forward.
It's beautiful, man. Couple of things that came up for me when you were saying that. First of all, such a powerful moment, and that purpose and the fear that you talked about was also bigger than you. It was not just for you, it was for your family and the potential people that you would impact as a result of growing into that version that you strive to be in that moment. When you talk about intuition, and I'm a big believer in that. And I think people may not understand the differentiation between intuition and, let's say, some negative self-talk or some negative belief systems that are like the whispers, right? When you made that decision to like let go of that past and embrace this new version of you, is that when your intuition got clearer? Is that when it got louder? Have you always had that intuition? You just didn't listen to it? Like, what changed around your intuition once that decision was made?
That's a really good question, man. I would say it probably got louder because I think we all have this, this compass or this emotional guidance system, as some would call it, that we're all born with. But because of the noise of the world and our focus and tuning in to the 97% instead of the 3% that we should be tuned into, it gets foggy and it's not as clear, and it gets quieted because, and you're a master at this yourself, James, all the monkey chatter in our mind, it almost confludes our intuition. So I think at that point, it was always there. It was almost kind of like a heartbeat, but a slow heartbeat that you couldn't really feel. And then I think the closer you get to your dreams, your passion, your goals, the things that you're supposed to be doing on this planet, the things that you actually are passionate about, the louder and the more intense that heartbeats get. And you almost, are almost getting warmer to your intuition. So you can start tuning into it a little bit more. So I think I would say it just got louder. And then I think the thing is, once you listen to your intuition or you do something that you believe in and it pays off, now you have credibility. Now, your belief increases a little bit, and next time's a little bit easier because you can pull from that past victory. You can pull from that past thing. It's hard to have faith in something until you can at least get a piece or a payoff of what you're trying to accomplish. So I think once I started to realize that, and no one's perfect, right? Like
Sure.
sometimes I zig instead of I zag. But I think it's about getting intentional. I think it's about getting quiet, spending time by yourself, cutting out the noise, cutting out distractions, spending some time with you and yourself, being alone. That's a big practice that I still to this day. I love going to lunch by myself. I love going to dinner sometimes by myself. I love my moments of solitude, because when things get quiet, that's when your intuition gets loud and you can really start tuning into the things that you need to be doing.
Right. And it's also a moment where it can get scary if you don't have the right intention going into those moments, because now you're going to have to confront some things that you may have been running from. And if you're not open to sitting with that, it can be a lot, which I think is why people have a hard time sitting in that solitude, the stillness, because everything is so chaotic and they just get used to that.
It's one of the hardest things you can do, man. Just, staying still, right? Meditation. It's still one of those things that I struggle with to this day. But, for a long time, I used to put meditation on a pedestal. Like there's this esoteric, crazy, magical, mystical thing about meditation. And I think when people do that, or at least for myself, it's a little scary. It's a little intimidating. And, complexity is the enemy of execution. When you create this complexity in terms of processes, in terms of tasks, in terms of things that you want to do, chances are you're not going to do it because you're not making it easy for yourself. You want to set yourself up to win. So now my relationship with meditation is very similar to my relationship with solitude. Is just spending time with myself, cutting out distractions, cutting off noise, doing my best to stay off social media, and just spending time with myself without stimuli, bogging down my psyche. And that's when, to your point, the magic happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So another thing that popped up when you were sharing that was the consistency. And I would agree that you are ultra consistent, and that's so powerful for any leader, but for you specifically, as long as I've known you, yes, you've continued to grow, but the true essence of you has remained the same, which creates a level of dependability and trust that your teams and the people that you work with can buy into and ultimately be led by you. And I love that. That's one of the things that I think is really great about you. And you mentioned that you think one of the reasons for that is that your vision is so big, which I think is such a key indicator. Another thing that I'm curious about is the emotion side, where because that vision is so big, you've committed to the long term, right? The long run. You've cultivated patience because you know that big vision isn't going to happen overnight, and you've learned to fall in love with the process of continually growing at a consistent rate, which is beautiful. And in order to do that, one needs to be very mindful and aware of the emotions that pop up along the journey that can detour you from keeping the action alive, right? And so what emotional intelligence, if you want to say it, skill sets or exercises or questions do you ask yourself regularly that help you not buy into the emotional storms that may happen along the journey and stay focused and rooted in either the vision or the purpose?
That's some great stuff, man. So there's a mantra that I've been saying to myself for, I feel like the last 7 or 8 years. It's things will work out because things always work out. And I remember during more uncertain times in my professional career where, I was all in financially, I was all in emotionally. If things didn't work out, I didn't know what I was going to do. And, we all have to go through phases and seasons. If you're going to, try and tackle a dream or tackle a big goal, where you're going to have to put yourself in a vulnerable situation where you have that make or break moment. And for me, whenever things even today pop up, challenges, big or small, because, the more money you make, the more successful you become. It doesn't get easier, right? You just become better, right? You become better at dealing with these bigger problems. And by having certain mantras that ground me, like things will work out because things always work out. Are you dead though, right? Are you going to die? And having these mantras that give me a sense of peace and grounding have helped me in the challenges and in the seasons of storms in order to have the faith, in order to take action, in order to get through it. Because at the end of the day, any decision, any challenge, any mountain that we go against, it's not going to kill us for the most part in modern day society. So therefore, it's the actual fear and uncomfortability that's actually more scary than actually taking the action in order to get there. So you need certain anchors in order to ground you, to give you the confidence, to give you the empowerment in order to make that decision. That's number one. Number two is, I've always been a very stoic person, and I haven't really started studying stoicism up until like the last couple of years, but it's always something that I've embodied from people like you who have told me certain things about myself that I really appreciate, or, mentors of mine. I've always been a very consistent person in the way that I show up in my emotional bank account. I never allow the highs to get too high. I never allow the lows to get too lows. The peaks and the valleys, I usually stay pretty consistent. One of the compliments I tend to get is, it doesn't matter if it's a bad day or a good day, I show up the same way. And at first I didn't do that by design. It was just more of my default. But the more I've dove into that, the more I realized that that's been one of the characteristics, or one of the gifts that's been able to serve me the most. Because what happens with most people, why they're not consistent, is because they're so reactive to whatever is going on in their life. And the issue about being reactive is life is unpredictable. There's going to be highs and lows. That's the nature of the life that we live. So if you're always absorbing that energy and you're always allowing yourself to be in the peaks too long or the valleys too long, you're not going to show up in the way that you need to, because you're taking 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back. So being able to stay consistent, being able to stay grounded in the way you show up, you make incremental growth, you make incremental progress that compounded over time, you're going to see a massive difference.
Beautiful. So the mantra kind of goes back to what you were saying about philosophy, right? And if you have a strong philosophy in the form of a mantra or a belief, that's where all of your thoughts come from. And every thought has a chemical, and the chemical makes you feel a certain thing. And that just creates an emotional home that an individual lives in. And if that mantra is producing a level of certainty, even in the face of uncertainty, then that allows you to show up and with faith, with trust, with resourcefulness to be able to navigate that storm, even though it could be frightening or scary. Like you just say, what is what it is. I'm just gonna one step at a time, So I love that. And then the stoicism, I have definitely dove into that and feel very similar to you as far as like not going to be the loudest, not going to be the softest, like the lowest either, but I'm going to be right there every time, and you're going to feel that, And so I love that. I'm curious because I feel this. Do you ever feel like an internal clock? Like if let's say you had a big goal that you just achieved, right? And you're going out and you're celebrating, you're having a good time, and maybe that lasts a day or two. And then inside of you is like, all right, dude, like time to get back to work. Or if you're having a bad moment, maybe a bad day, and you're allowing yourself to process it, but at some point you just snap out and you're like, just get back to work. Like, do you have that? And how aware of that are you?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest things that I've recently have been trying to work on, is really just being present and enjoying the celebrations, right? Celebrating the small victories and allowing myself to absorb that dopamine, to absorb that feeling, and not rob myself of all the victory of the work that I just put in. I think the challenge with being a high achiever comes with the challenge of sometimes not giving yourself enough credit, or not being present in certain situations, or not basking in something that you worked really hard with. If I don't do certain things in order for me to almost anchor myself to really enjoy that moment of something that I've accomplished, I typically just let it fly by and I rob myself of the experience. I'll give you an example. One of my biggest goals for a really long time was to buy my parents a house. Like, early on in entrepreneurship, that's always been like my biggest dream, my chief aim, as Napoleon Hill says. That's the thing that really pulled me through a lot of the challenging times early on in my career. And about 3 years ago in 2019, I was finally able to do that, which was an awesome accomplishment. It was great. But the funny part about it is I literally didn't process it for about a month after it actually happened. And the only reason I actually processed it, because I was sitting down in my car after, I remember it vividly, at a grocery store, trying to think of an Instagram bio to put on the post that I took with my parents. And it wasn't until that moment that I actually sat down, reflected on the journey and what it took and who I had to become in order for me to accomplish that. And that's when I felt the emotion. That's when a little tear came out of my eye. That's when I really was able to tap into that level of appreciation and gratitude to really experience it. And the scary thing is, I think if I never did that, I would have robbed myself of a really special moment in my life. And I fear that myself and a lot of overachievers, we do this consistently. It's the Instagram quote of, be grateful for the things that you wish you once had that you now do. Law of familiarity is one of our biggest enemies, I feel like. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I try and battle every single day. What becomes familiar becomes taken for granted, whether that's your wife, whether that's your relationship, your house that you wish you had one day, the dream car that you now have, your career, all these things that we wish and desire and we work so hard for, that we accomplish after a week, after a month, whatever it is, we lose that sense of energy and that sense of gratitude and appreciation of getting it. So for me, battling that law of familiarity is really important, because if you don't take time to celebrate your victories, you lose a little bit of hunger and you rob yourself of the experience. Because if you're not taking time to enjoy it, what gives you the motivation to go out there and get the next thing?
Right. And that comes back to fulfillment, right? And like the graduation, we've talked about this before, the graduation from high achiever to high performer. The high achievers only focus on the achieving of the things, even at the expense of their own health, or at the expense of not connecting with people that are maybe on their team. Whereas the high performer understands that in order to continue to do the work, one has to take moments to appreciate things, to recover, to share what's happening, to process. And that's the harmony of life. And there's lessons in all of those moments. And the individual that can recognize that, such as yourself, now becomes 10x more wise, because they're able to extract the lessons from the things that they've taken the time to understand and appreciate. And, the whole source of appreciation and gratitude is being grateful for something that you've received. And it isn't until you express gratitude that you actually get the gift that the experience or the person was able to give to you. That's when you fully take ownership over the thing, over the situation. And so that's beautiful, man. I'm so glad that you said that.
Yeah, man. Got to slow down and speed up sometimes in this fast-paced society. I mean, we both live in Vegas. We're not, we don't live in a place that has, a lot of nature, or a slower, just a slower movement. So it's like, especially in high-paced cities, when we're doing, things and we're trying to progress and we're trying to advance, and we have social media and all this stimuli bogging us down, and this the best, if you don't take time to slow things down and get into that Zen grounded state, you lose a lot of depth in your life and a lot of riches and experience. And it's an unfortunate thing. I think it's the battle. Tony Robbins talks about it. It's the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Science of achievement, if you do X, Y, and Z, you will achieve, destined result. But fulfillment, it's more of an art. There's not a strategy or a formula. It's something that you have to create. And yes. I think for people that are high achievers and have all this ambition, which is important, you should progress. You should want, a lot of, things, emotional things and physical things. You can't forget about that second piece of the formula.
Yeah. So true. You're really good at building culture, at recruiting, at putting the people in the right places. And so can you talk to us about how you think about culture and forming a team that can unify and support one another, and just what you've learned through building multiple, successful teams in many different states? Like, clearly you've not just done it once, you've done it multiple times. And I'm sure that there's a strategy there. What are some components that you can share with us that you think would be valuable for any leader who wants to build a team, who is already currently leading a team? Like, what are some strategies that they can use to improve?
Yeah, you can only build as high as your foundation is deep, and that's a philosophy that I've learned a long time ago. Your foundation in building anything is the most important part. You know, you can't build a building on a weak foundation, right? On sand or sticks. You need solid stone, because you may be able to build it for a little bit, but as soon as a strong wind or a strong storm comes, it's going to get knocked down. So you want a strong foundation, and in order to build a strong foundation, you need a vision, you need a mission, you need a why. You know, people, when you build something, you know, when you build it, people will come. You know, it's almost kind of like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. If you have a strong enough cause, a strong enough reason, if you're convicted enough in a certain goal or mission, you're going to attract like-minded people who believe in that same mission to come join your cause. I think the challenge, though, with people trying to build a team is they're not clear on the thing that they're trying to accomplish. For the last decade, my mission has been to help myself and help as many people as possible, live life on their own terms, and do that by do that by increasing their communication skills, do that by bringing in like-minded individuals that share a common goal and a common dream, because you're going to get there that much quicker. So step number one is you need a strong vision. You need a strong why. You need to know why you're doing something, or else you're not going to be able to attract people. Number two is you need a super solid foundation. And three, it's Zig Ziglar's, OG quote that everyone knows about, right? When you help enough people get what they want, you get what you want by default. If you can really build the people will build the business. I'm not in the profession of selling solar. I'm in the profession of building people, because as you build the people, the product will sell itself. And for me, I've always really have tried not to just help people in their business, but to help people in their life. Because again, back to our original talk, if you can help people improve their attitude, improve their communication skills, start to see things differently, then everything changes in their life. And then they're going to be convicted to go out there and also attract people based on that same level, of that philosophy. So building the foundation, and empowering people, helping build people. I think one of the challenges as like a leader, because it's one thing to build a team of like 3 or 4 people, right? If you have a team of 3 or 4 people, you can add value to them. You can touch them every single day, right? You can, have a certain level of impact and influence. But when you start getting to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people, it's impossible for you to add value to every single person consistently. So I think what great leaders do compared to good leaders in order to scale when it comes to building an organization, it's one thing to add value to a couple people, but in order to really maximize, you need to figure out a way to facilitate value within your organization. For example, I can't be the one running every single meeting all the time. That's not sustainable. I can't scale that way, but I can create certain events. I can host certain things. I can bring in certain speakers. I can do things where now everyone is getting value, but more importantly, now, person number 1 and person number 10 has the space where now they are speaking to each other and facilitating value within each other. And I feel like that's something I've been able to do naturally. Even in high school, I've always been good at being able to bring people together. I think that was just kind of one of my natural gifts that I discovered early on in my career. I've always been really good. I was never the leader back in the day, but I was always able to bring, soccer team group
the connector.
The connector. And by doing that, I facilitated value, because now they have different relationships and they're able to bring their network and their influence and see how they can help each other. And I've always been really good at connecting people. And, fast forward a decade into solar, that's really been my biggest skill set that's been able to help me progress. It's been able to recruit people, attract people, enroll people into my vision, and then create the space for all of them to be able to facilitate value with each other, which has created a culture, because when everyone is vibing and they're on the same frequency, now they're connected. When your ions fire off, right, they connect. So by doing that, now there is an incubator of value being created, that I just facilitated. I didn't necessarily create it. And now things are tight, culture's strong, and then you can duplicate off of that.
Yeah, that's so good, man. Thank you for that. Within that, as a leader, when you're presented with a problem, let's say it's a big problem, you can insert an example if you want, but let's say some big problem that you didn't foresee shows up on your phone, on your email, whatever, maybe in person. What's your first like thought, and what is like the first minute after finding out that problem?
So I'll give you my ideal situation, and then sometimes what happens, right?
Okay.
Because no one's perfect, right?
Sure.
Depending on where my emotional state is for that day,
Right.
if a problem occurs, sometimes it'll trigger me and I'll get reactionary. Thankfully, I've done enough work where that emotional disrupt only occurs for a short amount of time until I'm able to separate myself from the emotion and look at it from a spectator point of view and not being in the muck. A lot of times, what we do when challenges, situations occur, we are not our thoughts. That's a realization that I had to have a long time ago. We are not our thoughts. We are separate from our thoughts. We are a separate consciousness. Our thoughts are just something that is being created based on the stimulus and what's going on around us. So if you can really separate yourself from the emotion and look at it from a third party of view, a neutral point of view, then you can take a logical step in order to get that solved. But what happens is a lot of times a problem will evolve, a confrontation will happen. People will get triggered based on their baggage or based on their past experiences. And then now they're pulled into the problem and you're never able to solve the problem with the same consciousness that created it, right? Albert Einstein or whoever said that. So the ideal situation, problem occurs. I try and take a step back, potentially even take a breath, because your breath is a powerful way to center yourself and disconnect. And then you logically figure out what needs to happen. Again, problems for me, I've changed that word over, my personal development, and I look at it as a challenge now. If you can change problem to challenge, problem is something negative. There's a connotation there. Challenge is something that now you have the opportunity to overcome. So when that happens, I try and shift my perspective about it. Cool. Why is this happening? I believe that everything in life you create. That is another belief that I've created over the years, that I am the creator of my own circumstance. Therefore, everything that happens in my life, good or bad, I've created, I've manifested, either for a lesson or either because of, some type of sign or something that, universe or God is trying to show me. So if it's a big problem, I'll take that perspective to it. But if it's a small problem, I'll look at it, I'll take a deep breath, I'll emotionally discharge myself from it, and then I'll figure out what the solution is in an unemotional way and get it solved immediately. Because the challenge is, what happens is problems that happen in business or in life, we don't address it right away, and they store in the back of our mind. We almost kind of have like these small linear connections to it, like a string. And the more that lingers, the more you're getting bogged down by that, and the less clear you are because it's in the back of your head. So eat the frog, get it out of the way so it clears up your psyche, and then you can move forward and figure out what you need to do.
Nice. Yeah. So many people will say, I want to be problem free. And my response to that is something that Les Brown said to in a video, and I just busted up laughing because I was like, this is so true. He's like, you're either in a problem, just out of a problem, or heading into a problem. Like, problems don't go away. You trade one set for another. You grow into a new pair. Like, it's not about getting rid of problems as much as it is about being a better problem solver, right? And you do that by equipping yourself with greater levels of skill, greater levels of awareness, more support that can help you think through a problem, and you just get better at it. And so I'm happy to hear that that's your process, because I think we can get sometimes caught in a problem, and a lot of people can get addicted to one problem because the problem brings them significance. If they attach themselves to a problem, they get attention, they get sympathy, they get a pass, and it isn't until you can be honest with yourself as to how are you viewing the problem or the challenge, and how are you leveraging it. And there's many ways to do it, but as long as it's making you better and the people around you better, then that's ultimately what we're striving for.
Amen, man. Right? Either you're the victor or the victim, which is a great book, but it's true. I think 95% of people's challenges go away when they stop playing victim. Like, if you can truly, take full responsibility for everything going on in your life, the good, the bad, the ugly, the great, now you're in a state of empowerment, and now you can actually do something about it. But if you're always blaming your circumstances or the economy, or my coach isn't doing a good job, or this hood, already got burned. If you're always blaming outer circumstances, you're giving your power to things that are outside of your control. Therefore, you can't change anything. And that's when people get into that story and they hold on to these problems of why they're not in the situation they are, or why they're on probation, or why they're, their car got repoed. And because they don't want to take ownership over their life and what they created. And it's a scary place to be, because so many people operate out of that scarcity and that victim mindset and wonder why they're not able to get breakthroughs and getting their own result.
So easy. It's simple. It's not, it takes work. You got to rewire your mind. You got to be very intentional, and you got to find the right environments, but it's definitely possible if you choose and you make the decision like you once did back in the past.
Yeah.
What are some things that people don't necessarily understand about the direct selling industry as a whole that you think would be valuable for them to know if either they're questioning wanting to get into it, or they're just wanting to shift their perspective around it?
Yeah. I believe direct sales is just a personal development program with a big compensation plan attached. And that's kind of how I've looked at it for the last 10 years. Like, sales is the job. That's what you do. Knocking doors, selling solar, online marketing, like whatever your sales profession is, pest control, alarms, whatever, that's the job. But the person that you become in the process is ultimately going to be the biggest reward. For me, direct sales has changed my life, not just financially. Financially is the byproduct, because I had to become a completely different person. Growing up, I was low self-esteem, super shy, bad at communicating. I'd walk into a room and care more about what people think about me versus what I think about them. And for me, direct sales was that opportunity. It was that college, that learning lesson for me to really transform myself by doing something really uncomfortable. There's a quote that says 2 years of knocking on doors is like equivalent to a bachelor's degree in communication. Being able to work on your communication skills, being able to work on your emotional intelligence, being able to work on your level of consistency. One of the most challenging things on why people fail in direct sales is because they're not able to hold themselves accountable. Most people, they're paid for time, not performance. Therefore, if you come from a 9 to 5 where you're told what to do every single day, when to show up, when you can go to the bathroom, how many vacation days you get, and now you come into this opportunity where you have complete freedom, the only thing you have to do is bet on yourself and go out there and perform and hold yourself accountable. They can't do it because we've been conditioned all our life to be someone's employee, from grade school to elementary school to high school to college, right? We're put into this society, into this system where we're always being told what to do things, and we're never trained on how to do things for ourselves. So for me, direct sales has been that opportunity. I've really grown with the industry because I've been able to develop myself. My attitude, my ability. It's introduced me to concepts like law of attraction, to people like you. That's really been able to transform my life. And, I believe that direct sales isn't the end all be all. I've made a serious career out of it, but for most people, it could just be that stepping stone into developing yourself in order to go out there and chase your dreams or chase, whatever your goals are. It equips you with the skills, the headspace, and the tools that you need to go dominate any industry.
Hell yeah. I love that. You and I have talked about this for a long time in the masterminds and in trainings and this concept of energy management, right? Like energy being more valuable than time. And you're big on taking time to energize yourself so that you can sustain this level of performance that you've chosen to embody. I know one thing that you do, which I'll let you say regularly, that has changed your life, but I'm curious, what are your energy rejuvenating activities that help you continue to show up the way you want to?
Yeah. I think it's important to understand that, because you have to understand why it's important. Because until you know why to do something, you're not going to do it. For me, for a long time, I didn't do things like this because I was so focused on trying to get the result or trying to chase after my goal, and I put myself second. I think the concept of being selfish is a big misconstrued concept in society. Most people think about being selfish as something negative, as, oh, I am, I care about myself more than I care about other people. When in reality, the only way in order to make big impact, the only way in order to help change people's lives is for you to be selfish. Because if your cup's not filled, there's no way that you can fill anyone else's cup. And for a really long time, I would go try and add value to this person or go out there and take care of my parents. I was always trying to give to all these people. but my cup was empty. And that's why I never did a really good job at it. Your cup should be so filled. You should focus so much on yourself and becoming a better person, a more impactful person, a more generous person, that your cup overfills and starts filling other people's cups, not trying to pour a little bit of your water and try and give a little bit to every single person. So the things that I've done, massages are a really big thing for me. I try and do them weekly, if not weekly, bi-monthly, at least 2 times a month. For me, it's a sense of meditation. One, it's important for your body to feel good. For a really long time, I always neglected my body. I remember in 2018, I was like, I don't need to work out. I need to go to the gym. I don't need to do this. I'll do that when I'm rich and I can afford a personal trainer. I got to focus on this right now. When that was completely backwards, I was actually preventing my financial success because I wasn't focusing on my health, my body, my energy, my rejuvenation, my vitality. So massages are something that's changed my life because it allows me to just think for 60 minutes to 90 minutes in a dark room, not doing anything. It's almost like a forced meditation. And 2, I just feel better. I think better. My body feels more fluid and more loose. Therefore, I'm able to go out there and execute at a higher level. I'm big on, things like cryotherapy. I'm big on, taking, vacations once a quarter, away from work. I'm just big on making sure that my cup is filled, because I realize that if I'm not being selfish, then I'm not able to serve people at the highest level that I need to. And so many people out there are burning the candle at both ends, and they're wondering why they're not able to execute it, because they're not taking time for themselves, their most important asset. And they're only going and operating on a 40 or 50 or 60% charge. So they're only getting 30, 40, 50% results. Focus on yourself, not selfishly, but selflessly, because you have to realize that you're the most important investment you can make in yourself. And if you go out there with a full cup, typically things are going to happen and the people around you are going to get better because of it.
Yes. So good. And when you take the time to focus on yourself, I think one thing that is a byproduct of that is you learn precision of where your energy needs to go and how much you need to give to make something work at the level that you want to work it at, And I love massages too. I do one a month, and that's game changing. I can only imagine too. I also do float tanks, which I have a membership to, and that has been really helpful for me to have pitch black room, gravity taking no gravity basically, because you're floating in the water. Water's room temperature or body temperature, so there's no sensation other than, you feel the water, but other than that, it's just you and you. And those are the most important conversations, because until you become comfortable with those, someone else's voice is always going to be more powerful. And when you alluded to this earlier, when you have such a strong internal fortitude that you've cultivated time after time through the solitude, through taking care of yourself, then you show up with that grounded energy that you mentioned earlier as well, that calms people when they're emotional, that gives people confidence through them seeing how you're responding, right? And allows you to operate in that consistency that over time compounds. The same way money compounds, same way energy compounds, the same way results start compounding, but it takes the daily deposits in order to do that. And so thank you for sharing your energy rejuvenation activities. I'm sure everyone else has their thing, but the important thing is to find your thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. To what you just said, you can only transfer something that you're experiencing yourself. If you don't have certainty, if you don't have conviction, if you don't have peace, if you don't have all these emotions that you're trying to relate to other people, whether it's your family, your friends, your client, your prospect, there's no way you can transfer something to another person if you're not experiencing yourself. And that's what it comes back to, the selfishness concept. You have to get selfish. You have to get selfish with your time, your energy, the things that you do, your self-care, because if not, the way you show up to your marketplace, your family, your life, you're not going to get the result that you need to. And rejuvenating and spending time focusing on your health and your body and your mindset is the most important thing, because again, we take ourselves wherever we go. We could have the nicest car, we could have the nicest house, or we could have all these external materialistic things, But if we're not whole, if we're not peaceful, then all those things don't matter. You're actually going to lose them because you're not going to be able to sustain the level of growth or the success that you're trying to accomplish.
Amen. What's a concept that you've been thinking about recently that is top of mind right now that would be helpful to bring up now?
So, yeah, I would say the biggest concept, I think it goes back to what we were talking about briefly. I think I told you about this a month ago, but it's there's a book called The Gap in the Game. And it kind of touches on that fulfillment versus achievement mindset. I'm to the point in my career where, yes, I want more money, I want more growth, I want nicer things. Like that is still my tunnel vision. But I'm also to the point where I feel like I've sacrificed in certain seasons of my life, where I'm in a season of my life where I don't have to sacrifice my joy in order to get what I want. I don't think it needs to be a, this or that. I think we can do a that and that type of mentality. So I've really focused on maximizing my experiences while maximizing my effort in my business. I think a lot of people make trade-offs in their life where, oh, I can only, I have to do this in order to do that. When in reality, you can have both as long as you're aware of the seasons of your life. I think we go through seasons of our lives, just like seasons, of the year and of the world. You have to realize when you're in a winter, right, things may be a little bit challenging, but you have to realize that you're not going to be there forever. And fall, spring, and summer are right around the corner. But the important thing to realize with the seasons and what season your life is, you have to realize you need to act accordingly. If you're in a summer season of your life when things are going good, you want to continue to double down on that momentum and execute, because chances are there's going to be a winter right around the corner where you may not have those same opportunities. You may not have the same capabilities in order to, get there to the next level. So I would say know the season you're in. Realize if you're in a winter, it's okay. Have some faith, shift your perspective. There's a summer coming around the corner, and execute. The second thing I've really been thinking about to kind of, pivot a little bit is financial freedom. I think that's something that everyone wants, but a lot of people don't desire. It's one thing to be interested in something, and it's another thing to be committed to something, right? When you're interested in something, you go after it, you take action when things are convenient. When you're committed to something, you go after it no matter what the circumstances that are in front of you. So for me, I think focusing on really financial freedom is my biggest goal right now. It's not just about making money, but it's also about figuring out a way to make money not important to me anymore. Because me and you are both deep thinkers, James. I know you do a bunch of stuff in Colombia and like all these really cool trips to really learn more about yourself, learn more about life, and why are we really here? And for me, one of my biggest goals for a really long time, after I've taken care of a lot of the monetary solutions that I've been able to accomplish, is making enough money where I can clear my mind up of the basic necessities and the things that I need to do, the emails, the calls, clear my mind up of that and really focus on why I'm here and what life is about. And it's hard to tap into that level of depth and that level and that frequency if you're concerned about how you're going to pay your bills next month, or, if you're going to get fired, or if you're going to get that promotion. So I think most people are so content with just surviving in life and just playing the cards they were dealt that they almost give up on their dreams. They give up on why we're really here. And for me, I really want to inspire people by doing it myself, right? Because it's not about telling people, it's about showing people you can create a life where you can have all your financial stuff taken care of and really be able to go deep and tap into why you're really here, and figure out what your mission is. And that's really been my mission this last years, to figure out what I need to do to get myself to that level and help as many people as possible get there.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. One of my last questions for you is how you view the word surrender. There's a book called Surrender Experiment by, drawing a blank on his name, something Singer. He also wrote The Untethered Soul. And I think there's a negative connotation to surrender, but in the way that I'm thinking about it is the surrendering to your purpose, the surrendering to the things that you can't control, the surrendering to the intuition, the intuitive nudges that guide you in a certain direction. How do you view that word? And have there been moments or periods of time where you have surrendered, and what did that look like, or how did that go for you?
I think Eckhart Tolle, was that what it is?
That was not who wrote the book, but I know Eckhart Tolle talks about surrendering. Yeah.
So the first time I heard about this concept of surrendering was actually at a conference, I think in like 2015 or 16. There was some speaker, don't remember his name, but his whole talk was about this concept of surrender. And up until that point, surrender to me, like to most people, was just a word that meant to give up, to quit. Military, right? They surrender their forces, or they surrender their land, whatever. And then over the years, diving into it, surrender has made one of the biggest impacts of my life by really actually understanding that. To me, surrender means to let go of control of the things that you can't control. There's going to be a lot of challenges and times that we all go through, whether it's in business, whether it's in life, whether it's in people's health, where if you try and force or you try and fight things that you can't control, you're actually just creating misery in your life. You're creating pain and suffering, pain. Those are all self-imposed. There's no reason to suffer. There are circumstances that you can't control that are going to be challenging, but we give meaning to things. The things that we give meaning to will dictate the emotion that we feel about that. So for me, surrendering just empowers me to be in a position where I let go of the things that I can't control, and I trust in a higher being. I trust in myself. I trust the process. There are a lot of scary times in my career where I didn't know what the outcome would be, but I trusted that things will work out because things always work out. And I had to surrender to the experience and just trust that something higher than me will take care of me. And if I didn't surrender to the experience, I may have created blocks, or I may have created negativity or challenges that were self-imposed that wouldn't have allowed me to get to the destined result. I think a lot of times we just have to get out of our own way. I do believe that we are God's highest form of creation, and that we are meant to be on this planet to thrive. But it's our thinking and it's our thoughts and our conditioning that actually puts blocks and doesn't allow ourselves to get there. So surrendering to me means removing all those blocks, trusting, and almost putting myself in a full, just a full position of just letting things go and allowing things to transpire the way they do.
Yes, that's great. That's so good. That reminds me of a quote that says, people who can't control themselves usually try and control others. And it's so true. And the moment you develop that self-love, self-respect, self-awareness, and understand the importance of controlling what you can control, you do embody surrender. And also you realize that the only thing that you can't control is you, which frees up so much time and energy from being a part of things that don't matter, right? And when you're trying to do big things, it's not about how much more you can add. It's about how much you can get rid of so that you keep the essence of what's going to sustain the thing that you're trying to build. More is not always better. Sometimes doing simple better is actually the best form, because it keeps things at a certain level of understanding that allows you to execute quickly. Like you mentioned with the complexity versus simplicity, is like, what are the essentials? Double down on the essentials, right? And from there, you can build from a much deeper building that then allows you to build higher if you do choose to. So
James, why do you think people try and control things that they can't control, and in the process of that actually prevent themselves from achieving the thing that they're trying to achieve? Is that something that we're born with? Is that like survival?
Maybe it's a little bit of both, but I think it's definitely a learned thing, and it's a self-protective thing. I think that people try and control others because they don't have the courage to go inside and accept the things that they need to accept about themselves that would enlighten them to the point that they understand they can't control other people, right? It's like, I want you to treat me this way so that I don't get triggered. And it's like, well, you're triggered because of how you're viewing that situation. So if you shifted the focus from you need to be this way to why am I feeling this way when this happens, then you went to the core of the issue, solved it, reframed it, rewired it so that if that person does it again, it doesn't mean anything. And so But that's a scary process, and that's a hard process because you have to sit with yourself. You have to look in the mirror. You got to have a hard conversation with you and be real with where you're showing up, how you're showing up, what you've done that you're not proud of, and all the work that lies before you to change into the version that you know you want to be and that you can be. So I think it's just a way of hiding. It's a way of not confronting things. It's like it's easier to focus on somebody else than it is to focus on yourself. You know, it's why gossip exists. It's why comparison exists. It's why jealousy exists. It's just anything for me not to focus on the issue that I have inside myself. It's too big, so let me drink. Let me smoke. Let me go do this thing I know I shouldn't do, but it relieves the tension and the pressure that I feel momentarily, only to be found that the next day it comes, it's bigger and it's stronger, and now it's even harder to stop. It's like at some point, life is either going to force you to look at it, or you can consciously choose intentionally to say, let me look at it, because the sooner I do, the faster I can grow and the more I can serve, and the more fulfilling my life will be, because now I'm adding more value, not projecting all of my fears and insecurities on other people that don't deserve it.
Well said.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. Yeah.
Thanks for answering.
Any last minute things that you think would be helpful for the audience before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would just say for everyone listening, like, you can do it. Like, whatever that goal is, like whatever that dream is, whatever that thing that you know that you want to do, but scary, but it's uncomfortable, like, you can absolutely accomplish it. The reason most people don't win in life in any area, it's not because they're not capable, it's not because they're not worthy, it's not because they're not good looking enough, or they don't have the skill set. It's simply because they're not willing to put themselves in a vulnerable situation to see what they're actually made of. And the challenge with that is, when you're not willing to put yourself in a situation to see what you're made of, you never get to see what you're made of. And you go through life as a spectator and not as a participant. And you look back with a lot of regret as you get older. And it's one of the worst things that you can do. So I would say for everyone listening, just go do it, right? Regardless of the how. You don't need to know how you're going to accomplish something. As long as you have a big enough vision, a big enough why, and it actually means something to you, take the first step. You don't have to see the full staircase. And that's going to be your journey on your growth path to whatever you're trying to accomplish.
Amazing. Steven, thank you for being a powerful leader, man. Thank you for being someone who's so inquisitive, curious, and relentless in their pursuit of acquiring more knowledge and wisdom to impact the people that you serve. So I know you're an inspiration to me, man. Keep doing your thing and keep shining your light.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you having me on.